This is the Greyhorn Pagans Podcast, a podcast hosted and produced by the tribe of the Greyhorn Pagans, the frontrunners in the pagan revival. On this podcast, we discuss all matters paganism, witchcraft, mysticism, and mythology. We thank you all for joining us once more, and welcome to the Greyhorn Pagans Podcast.
And we are alive. We are back on the Greyhorn Pagans Podcast, taking a little break from 24/7 streaming to record a new one. And there is my kitty co-host. He hears the words podcasting. He's like, I'm in. Today I have special guest Dustin, who will tell us all about and teach us all about the Bock Saga. I call it a alternative to the prose Edda and the poetic Edda, the Germanic and Scandinavian text that we are all well familiar with. But the Bock Saga takes it a little further, takes it a little deeper, goes much more into astrology, the magic of words, if I'm not mistaken. So, Dustin, thank you very much for coming on and introduce yourself for the people who may not be familiar with you.
Well, of course, you wouldn't be familiar with me. I'm just a normie guy. I don't have any platforms. I don't have any social media I want you to follow me on or anything like that. But yeah, we're here to talk about some Bock Saga, and all the other Nordic mythology and stuff, I'm really not that familiar with. But I'm quite a bit more familiar with this Bock Saga. And I came across it maybe about a year and a half ago, and I understand it to be the symbolism, you can call it a mythology, but it's more of a history, mythology, and a language and a sound system. So all of the stories and the mythologies and the history in the saga are backed up by the words of the language. And that's kind of what I wanted to go in about talking about today, the sound system specifically. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm very much into the study of cymatics. I think it's incredibly interesting, and there is so much to be found and to be learned from it. But I know that the Bock Saga, I've been a member of the English-speaking group on Telegram for a little while, and you really do a lot with sound and how things sound and connecting it to history and to certain events and all. Because in short, what does the Bock Saga?
Okay, so I'll try to do this real quick. Okay, so. Sure. Basically, it's a story of the origins of all humans. This group of humans, all human. In the Bock Saga, it explains how the first two people started making more people, how the problems, the issues they encountered making more people, and the system in which they used to make more people. And in the mind of the very first humans came the sound, right? We are much more natural, just like a cat goes meow and has its own language and sounds, just like all the other animals. The humans were the same way. However, we were given more sounds, and there's meanings in these sounds. And so by having these meanings in the sounds, we are able to construct, and in each word is a combination of meaning. So every word has not a definition, it's a meaning, which is very different, right? A definition, you can think of it as like a deaf Phoenician. It's for reading, right? And so everything is written down came way later, yeah? And you have 3 time periods that are separated by these destructions of their homeland, which is hell. And hell is what we call today Helsinki, and it's in Finland. So it's So you have these 3 time periods: paradise, the ice time, which is called all the land's ice, Atlantis. Post the third Ragnarok came later with basically Catholic Church, the Greek Orthodox Church coming in and basically just killing everybody once they've already conquered and the rest of Europe, and hell was its final thing, and that happened in 1050 AD. So that was not too long ago. Whereas the first Ragnarok, the earth was a whole tropical paradise. And so in the beginning, in this paradise time, which is paradiset, which is paradiset, you can hear it as the para is like before, but or the pa is also like pole, and then ra is the sun or the rays of the sun going around a pole, and or you can hear it as the time before the ice, paradise, the time before the ice. Whereas the time after the ice, once the ice came down. Okay, it's such a big story, and it's such a big story. So you have this time in paradise where you have a perpendicular galactic axis, where you have the North Star going through, making a galactic axis through the center, through the North Pole of the planet.
Yeah.
And this was perpendicular to the sun. So if you imagine the sun going around the planet, or the planet going around the sun, and it's perpendicular, the top of the planet, the sun doesn't rise and set, or it's constant 360 degrees. It's going around the pole, and then the rest are perfect. There were no seasons. The sun was, the angle was always the same at this time. But something happened and caused the first Ragnarok, and which caused the tilt we still have today. Now in this story, there's also not just the planet that tilted, it's the entire galactic axis that tilted. That's why when you look at the North Star, it's off at an angle. It wasn't always that way, and so that's kind of very, very like skipping every 20 years of saga, but give you a brief overview. But built into this is the language. Now, in the language is what explains everything in the words that we use in all of our language. From English, and the saga is told in basically this root language and the Finnish language called the Von language. So you have the Osser language. We're all familiar with the Osser. Yeah. Probably on your show. On your show, we're all familiar with the Osser, the word Osser, and the Vonner. Yeah. And so you have the Osser language and the Von language, and these two languages combined after the second Ragnarok, and to make the English language. And the English language is a combination of the Osser language and the Vonner language, because as we are connecting with the rest of as the Osser were connecting with the rest of the planet again, because they were coming out of the ice. It's an agricultural language. The English language is an agricultural language. It's for trading, and it's the money language. It's this is why today every country in the world still speaks English. You got to learn English. Like all of us, speak English. With world leaders from China speaking to world leaders in Africa, they speak English to each other.
Yeah,
right?
that's true. Like English is indeed like such an important language, and it's not even the most spoken language in the world. Because if you look at like sheer numbers, that's still Chinese, but that's just because there are quite literally billions of people in China. But like it's always the go-to language. If you don't speak each other's language, well, at least you both speak English. For some reason, you always speak English. Like I remember, like I had a friend didn't speak Danish. He didn't speak Dutch. So how do we converse English? Because we both know English.
And it's very tolerant of accent. Whereas other languages, if you're speaking Chinese, you have to speak perfect Chinese. You can't it's almost rude to or disrespectful to not speak it properly. But whereas English, you have an accent. Makes no difference to me. I have an accent, I guess, these languages are constructed out of this root language, which has these core 30 sounds now. I always thought it was 29. I'm just learning new things as I go along. but apparently it's 30 sounds. And
okay.
And it's imagined around a ring, and each character. Why don't you pull it up?
Yeah. Let's see.
Unless there's something else specific, you have any questions?
No.
Yeah.
It's I think this would be a great time to pull that up indeed. Let's see.
So
there we go. This is our convo. Yeah, this one.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So I recreated this, but I did not create it. I am not the creator of this. I am the recreator of this. And this is probably the only version that is as visual of the letters that we have access to. The story behind this, you'll see if you look closely, you're actually looking at all of the letters of our alphabets. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, and above the T is the U and the V. And then W is not a sound. A lot of people don't realize this, but we have a lot of W words in English. It's not an actual sound. You can't make a W sound. You end up making a vowel sound. So W only has a place in front of or behind a vowel. So if I was say, it's a movement of my face, but if I say it without the letter A or E or I or O, it doesn't make a sound. So whoa, I'm saying O. But was just like a little accent in the beginning or after it. So it's not an actual letter. And what's not,
that kind of makes sense because it's that goes back to writing. Like we were talking a little about writing before we went on, because that's literally how it got its name, the W, because it was like the earliest writings was literally just two U's attached to each other.
And it's technically two V's,
Yeah, but that's how they call it. That's how they call it in French, the W. So the double V technically.
Again, it's and you'll find that if you go back to this root language, a lot of our W words are actually just V. So that would be more accurate as a W double V rather than a W, because it doesn't make it.
So you're saying the French were right?
Well, the French originally were these part of the Osser tribes that broke off before the Viking era, Frankenland, and just to touch on that too. All of these countries in the north, France was Frankenland, Deutschland, Switzerland, Netherlands, England, Scotland, Ireland,
the Netherlands,
Finland, Russia used to be called Rusland, Denmark, means land. You have all these things with all these countries now with the word land in the name. And the time period where all the lands ice, alt, land, east. So these are the lands they're referring to. That we think of land as just not ocean, but these are the lands that is Atlantis. It's a time period. Okay, and so just to give you a scope of how big and how far back the Bock Saga goes, is ice time 50 million years.
Jeez,
but the root language is describing a time of paradise, of a time before the ice. Let that settle in. I'm saying, the saga's saying, the language is saying, all of our words are saying that we have been here far longer than we can even find evidence for. 50 million years, that's ice time. But paradise lasted longer than ice time. So and if you really think about it, right, we're clearly this ancient creature or something. Humans are clearly very ancient.
For a moment, I have found a map with this should be around the last actual ice time. A very large part of England, the Netherlands, and all the countries with their name ending in land does seem to be covered in a huge
so even deeper into the ice time, it would have gone all the way down to the Alps and Pyrenees mountain above Spain.
So literally
and then but it would also cover all the way across North America around Washington, Canada border. So the ice would have been it also would have been on the South Pole as well. So basically what happened is tilted. And what happened is the angle of the sun basically evaporated the water in the ocean. Not all of it, but massive amounts of water. So the ocean levels dropped. More land was in the center tropical areas, and all the evaporation went to the north and south poles and rained down ice sheets. And so there was 2-kilometer high walls of ice completely encapsulating up top of the planet, the utopia, which was previously a utopia, right? And that's another hint, that word, utopia, uptopia, just like Netherlands, nether means under. What's it under, right? What's it under?
Under sea level, very, very much under sea level.
Well, I would say it's under the North Pole, and it's a hit. And so just above the Netherlands is the Baltic Sea, and just above that is this area of Finland, Sweden, the Scandinavian countries. And this is where all this whole story comes out of, is more Scandinavia. So just like Estonia, when these at the end of this ice age, which about 10,000 years ago, which is now coming into mainstream conversations, from Joe Rogan and things like that, is that something happened, all this ice melted, maybe this is where we get our flood stories from, stuff like that. But
right, yeah.
About 10,000 years ago, what happened is as the ice was melting, it was just carving down the lands in Scandinavia, and these ice caps were coming down and taking, and just all the soil, all the dirt, all the earth was just being pushed down, and all the big stones are being pushed down into Estonia. So even the name Estonia is talking about the stones that were being pushed down from these ice caps sliding.
Oh, anyway. That's interesting. I actually, just the other day, did a show about the Baltics and Baltic paganism and all, and this is another connection to it. That's really fascinating.
Yeah. And the Estonian language is very similar to this Finnish language.
Yeah, they seem to be more closely related to each other, because Finland, even though we consider it like part of Scandinavia, the people and the language is nothing like Norse or Swedish or Danish. Like, it's very different, closer to the
nothing. Like, I know, like, as like someone who speaks English or any of these other more root languages, like Dutch, German, these are more coming out of this root language. Whereas this Vonner language, the Finnish language, is the Vonner language. And so I just heard that a lot of Finns still think their language is only a couple hundred years old. It's like they have no clue. I guess a lot of them do, but it's mind-boggling that their language is so advanced and complex, and just even looking at it is so intimidating. Like I can't even grasp any of it, and I've been looking at it for like a year now. Like I can't even begin. Whereas this root language is much more similar to the language, the other languages coming out of Europe.
I know that the United States, or America as we know it, is also called Finland, but with a V instead of an F. And of course, you have in Florida, of all places, you have the Bock Tower, this huge. The tribal thing, Josh, has actually been there, and he definitely said that there is a different energy to it. That just the tower itself, like in the symbolism and the huge golden door, even, which you
things are an anomaly for sure.
Which I have, of course, used in the thumbnail.
Most of the saga kind of doesn't really take place in the last hundreds of years. There's just kind of like a little following the key players of, after the destruction, the third Ragnarok, and it's supposed to be the third and final Ragnarok that happened in Hell, which is called Helsinki now. They are kicked out for a couple hundred years and came back in 1200 AD, 1248 or something like that. And there's the Christendom has already gotten a grasp on the world by this time, and has continued that into modernity today. So there's a lot of the problem is we're looking at all these symbols, we're looking at the Bock Tower, we're looking at all these different mythologies, and the Bible, the Torah, the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Egyptians, and everything like that. And we're trying to like figure this out. The problem is we're starting from now, going backwards, when really you don't read a book like that. You start from the beginning. And that's why I really like the Bock Saga, is it really starts at the beginning. It starts in paradise. It starts with the foundation of this sound system, which fractals out and explains everything. It explains nature. It explains how we use nature, how we live with nature and not against it and stuff like that. And yeah.
But that connects like with so many other mythologies. You know, paradise, of course, like you immediately think of the Bible and biblical times, and the small periods in between, like that you could say that's like the 1,000-year reign of Christ, or like the small period in between where, according to their sacred text, that, you know, the devil or Satan has like free roam, free game to.
So the easy way to know
as many people as he can.
Yes. But the words they're using, they can't break it down and give us the real meaning of that word. Whereas if you take this root language, you can break the word down into its individual letters, individual syllables, individual things to get the entire meaning. That makes a lot of sense. And you can do this with all of them. Right? You said devil, right? Devil, right? Yeah. And how's the devil portrayed? You know, horns, and you know, horns, for Christmas time, you call it Yule Day, right? Yeah. And Christmas time is Yule Day. Yeah, it's the wheel. Devil. You know, and this is Capricorn.
Oh, shit.
You know, and
that's a good one.
You know, and same thing with demon, right? The moon. This is talking about the moon, right? And this is the moon. What's the moon symbolize? It symbolizes the nighttime, right? This is where you get moon stars, moon monsters. You know, like all of these words are just stolen.
Yeah,
and the like big Greek, thing. The big thing they did is
the Greek daemon, which was basically like a wasn't even an evil entity, more like a I believe like more like a personal guardian angel or something. Like, you know, not necessarily evil, but just something that was always there. That's always with you. Like everybody has their personal daemon, and I guess now everybody has their demons.
Well, don't you have a moon sign?
Yeah. Definitely.
So there you go. There's the moon sign. I mean, it's like when it comes to astrology, right? The word astrology is the Auser's true logic. Astrology, the logic of the Auser, the true logic of the Auser. This is a root language word as well. And same thing with horoscope. Horoscope is a root language word. Scope means a lens. Hor is a hair. This is talking about when they would put like you put a candle under this crystal, and you can and you put little hairs. They would put hairs on it, and it would shine the light up onto the cavern, so they can. Because in this paradise time, there's about a 250-kilometer ring going around the North Pole, where the sun never set, but it was also never directly above you. It was going around in a ring, and this around the land, and that land, like in Von language, is Ma, like Mama, Mother Earth. Yeah. And the land is Ma, and the sun is called Odin, not Odin, like I-N. It's Odin, E-N, yeah? And this is where Odin comes from, is Odin. And in this land is called Odin Ma. And still to this day, you go to Helsinki, hey, it's like their version of a county or something. The name's still preserved as Odin Ma. Where am I? I mean, you're in Odin Ma. That's the whole area around Helsinki. This language is constructed by the angles of the sun and the moon, because the moon is represented by Ra, is called Ra, right? And if you look at the character, pull up that ring again. Sorry. But when it comes to astrology, right? You asked me 2-3 years ago, let's say, what my astrology sign is. I would have told you. It's funny because your wife, but I would say I'm a firefly. And I go, that's not one. And I go, none of them are. I was like, I thought it was just a big joke. Yeah. But when you think about it, it's important to know, it's important. You can't just plant any crop any time of year. It's important to the angle of the sun and the moon when planting crops, right? If the, even to pull flavor out of certain herbs or vegetables or fruits, if the moon is at this angle, it's drawing up, or it's pushing moisture upwards. Or if it's or sometimes if at a different angle, it's pulling the moisture down. So it's a good time to weed your garden when the moon is at a certain angle. Yeah, it has a profound effect on the on all life. Yeah, and the sun goes out, there is no life. In this story, the sun is the creator of everything. Udin is a ring. Udin is everything. Udin has always been and will always be. And Udin is the sun. So that's supposed to be an ancient English poem about the sun. And so why would these astral bodies not have an effect on humans? That was kind of the logic that actually made me think about astrology a little bit more, and that it actually does have a profound effect on, you know, our personalities and things like that. And but I'm not really into the personality stuff as much as
yeah. Oh, so you're not a basic white chick?
Correct. I see it more as, so this is what I all the ancient texts, the Bible, the all of them, right? The Egyptians, I get a lot of my astrology knowledge as far as once writings began, once black ink hit white paper, all this stuff was describing astrology. And today we call it astrotheology, right? When Jesus is the sun as it moves throughout the year, yeah, and like, you know, the Lamb of God, that's the sun in Aries. Do not worship false idols, the golden cow. That's because the age of Taurus has ended. You know, and you just go on and on and on. The pride comes before the fall. What's a group of lions? Pride. What's after Leo? Fall. It's all that is astrology.
It is.
But before that, where did these animals come from? These are domesticated animals. Yeah, like the sheep, the cow, the horse. Anyway, a lot of the astrology animals, these are domesticated animals. Yeah, and they're domesticated in the ice because you take these animals that are and put them in wintertime in the barn and they don't die. You can't do that with tropical animals.
I mean, you can try, but they won't last long.
Yeah, exactly. And so these animals were developed in the ice time, in Atlantis. This is where this technology narrative comes from. It's agriculture, and you don't need domesticated animals and farming agriculture in the tropical areas. Food grows everywhere. I live in California. Mm-hmm. Every yard has orange trees. Like there's just they're everywhere. I can walk down the street and just like reach into people's yard and I can eat all day.
With me living in the Netherlands, Northern Europe, it gets cold here. It gets really cold.
So hopefully you've harvested in Virgo. The goddess of harvest is Virgo,
I'm sure our farmers.
And then you weigh your grains in Libra.
Yep.
And that's why it's the scales, because you want to weigh your grains, and this is when you make your bread. And if you don't make your bread by the time you're in Libra, the sun's already at too low of an angle for you to produce any more food. And if you haven't produced it if you didn't put the plow on the cow in Taurus and harvest in Virgo and make bread and in Libra, that's your final judgment. That's why Libra is the judge. Yeah, because after that, you have wintertime. And if you didn't prepare and you didn't follow the signs in the sky, you're going to die. And, in all these Latin languages, their word for winter is invierno with a V, but their word for hell is infierno with an F. Yeah, and in English, we think it's inferno, like a fiery inferno, but it's the exact opposite, right?
Which I think it's interesting because I know that in the Divine Comedy, the most inner circle of hell where the devil or Satan or whatever name you want to give him actually resides is a huge circle of ice. It's not all fire and brimstone. It's not, a lake of eternal fire. No, it's actually frozen, like hell froze over, quite literally.
And it literally did in the Bock Saga. The hell is a place and it's home, and it's one of the 8 powers. Like in pagan you have 4 powers. You have Frey, Freya, and and one more. But in the Bock Saga, there's 4 more. Yeah, I mean, so that was really important. And so obviously this knowledge came out of Atlantis, the ice time. It came out of this. And, once the ice melted, you have these Aesir brothers. So the system of the Aesir was maintained by these 2 Vikings, the V kings, we 2 kings. You have the Sven line, that's Sweden, Norway, Scotland, Ireland, Iceland, Greenland. These are all the same race of white people. And then you have the other race of white people, the Den line. This is Denmark. And it's the same race of white people starting from Denmark all the way through to England, the Netherlands. That's all the same. And then you have the original race of white people, which is the Finnish and the Russians. And especially northern Russia, these are Finnish. They're all the same race of white people. There was some mixing later on with when the Aesir kings would had some of the Sven line go over to Russia. So there's some Swede mixing.
The let's say the Kievan Rus were like really one of the first people to like were they in talking Bock Saga terms, like were they the first to like really move out of the area, or are they just the same line?
In Paradise, the whole planet got populated. There's more people on this planet than there are today in Paradise. There's billions and billions and billions of people, and everyone was brown skin, brown haired, brown eyes, everything. It was a tropical paradise. They had a system of ringlands and a system of an allfather, an alpha, the alpha. And just like the alphabet is a poem. So if you want to pull that ring up, this is a poem describing how the system they used, who made what people. And there's a caste system. So there's 5 castes. You have your Allfather on the top, and the second Aesir family, where he would make 12 sons with one of the highest women, the most beautiful, healthy woman on the planet at the time, and then would also make the next class of people. This is the neck class, and neck class, Nicholas, Santa. The next class comes from the neck of the Allfather, and then you have the Jarl class, the Carl class, and then the last caste was the Trail class. And the women from the lower caste would make children with the men from the class above them. So the Trail class men don't make any children. And it was this system where you had a Jarl who had a title of a Rabbi, which the Jews call a rabbi today. But in a ringland, it's about another 250 kilometer hexagon. And this Rabbi would make all the next class of people in his ringland. And this Rabbi came from the Allfather, the Lemminkainen.
It's funny how you mentioned that the alphabet is like a poet or a poem or something, because like especially the people of our generation, 30s, 40s, like who hasn't learned the alphabet like quite literally by singing it, really?
Yes.
And like that's
and why is it ABC? Why isn't it GSUEVT all the way through? Why is it in the order that it's in?
Apparently, supposedly because of the Greek alphabets, but that's like even that doesn't.
Well, I'm going to shit all over that theory here in a second.
That is like alpha, beta, and then it goes into, I believe, like
why is it alpha?
Kappa, gamma. Yeah. Like it skips from like the alphabet that we know. It like so many freaking letters, and it's just so to say it comes from that. I mean, it hasn't. It probably had an influence on it, but as is with so many things, really.
I'm gonna shit all over this. Okay, you ready? All right,
well,
keep it up. Keep it up. Keep that ring up. The first letter.
Going back to school, people, pay attention.
Yes, we're gonna learn our ABCs, what they really are. Yeah. Okay. So at the top, you see the W, but it's actually an I. So there's a pole. This is a ring and a pole in the middle. This is the first letter. This is the I, which is E. Okay. So all these associations are twisted up in the different languages, but this is the original. Okay.
Those were my initial struggles with English, because in English, what you call I, we call E, but what you call E, we call A, and what you call
and
A, we call
I is a combination. I is not even a sound. It's a combination of two sounds or three sounds, maybe. I. It's A-I. Anyway,
or
I-E.
or AIJ even.
Yeah. So the first letter is E, and that's representing the pole, the galactic axis pointing to the North Star.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
The next
Everything starts with the I.
Mm-hmm. And the next one is A, or Ah. And Ah is Osser, is Bay, which means Borg, which is castle. Okay. And then C is Say, and it's share. It means to share. Okay. And then you have D, which is day, and it represents the daytime. Now, if you look at it, the C is actually an S, and the D is just a line at the bottom of the S. You see that?
Oh, shit, yeah.
So this is where you get all of your SK words, your Scorpio. And this is actually, this is a clock. So you have 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, like a regular clock. It's also the alphabet. It's also a calendar as far as astrology, right? So at the top of the first letter, that's Capricorn, the top of the mountain. And then, it starts going in it, whatever. And then you got Scorpio right in between the S and the D, which is where you get your SC word, which is interesting. And so this is also representing.
I never even saw this till you pointed it out. Like this C, D, if you, yeah.
Okay, it happens again later. But this is representing the moon. So the D is the daytime, and the C, the moon. Yeah, so it's the daytime and the nighttime are split, half day, half night. And E is Ek, stands for oak tree. And the oak tree is symbolic of the sperm of the Allfather. This is the family tree, the sperm line. Instead of bloodlines that we talk about today, and you think about a little acorn, what it looks like, and the acorn is like ulun. And
in Dutch we call the acorn, we call it eikel, and we call the let's say just that part of the male member, we call it the same. Like it's the same. Same name for both things. This
is the mind-blowing stuff, because once you crack the code and you see this, your whole language is going to open up into. This is what happened with English for me. I never thought about all the words I was saying until I had this Bock Saga sound system in my brain, and then it was like, whoa. Anyway, so yeah, we are all born from the acorn, representing the man's penis. Okay. So now we're going down. F is EF, F, and it's representing it's fru, or fru, which is seed. And this is also representing Frey and Freya.
The fru is the
fru. Yeah, you said it.
Yeah,
I'm glad I have someone who can pronounce this stuff better.
No, that's fine. But if we're talking, like royal terms and all, she would be the Jarl's wife. The fru, or the
yes,
fru,
this would have came later. So the more paganism, or like what we think of paganism now, what you do, or like the Viking era. These are systems that came out of this that were still in like the same structure, a new Allfather. So not everything is the same, but everyone got along and accepted eventually. But Frey and Freya are representing the first two people, okay? And this is called the Bock Saga. This is the goat. The Bock means goat, right?
Yeah.
And it's a big. When you guys celebrate Christmas, do you have like Bock in like straw box that you make for Christmas time, or is that more just Finland?
No, that's Scandinavia. That's
that's definitely
in Sweden. They have the Yule Bock.
So Frey and Freya are representing the first two people. The first Frey is the first that can make more people, right?
Okay.
So he's the seed of humanity. Okay. G, gay. Gay is grund. Yeah, it means ground.
Yeah.
And gay is GE. It's Ekken's grund, the oak tree's ground, where it comes out of. And the word gay, and And the
like
word gay,
the eichel, through the acorn comes a new.
And the word gay means to give. Okay, so that's G. Then you have H and the A with the ring above it. And this is hell. This is the center of Udenma, which is an island 3 kilometers off the coast of Helsinki. And HA, the A with the ring above it, is representing like a river. It's referring to the river of life flowing from hell. Next, you have
that reminds me of the like the river Styx in Greek mythology. Like it's always connected with water or some sort of like water body.
Well, we all start in the water, right? We start in our mother's water, and it's when it breaks is when our life begins. And then next you have the other another I or E, and this E is representing inside of a woman, or the E, the prick of a man, and the seed coming out of it. So this character has two meanings: the pole pointing to the North Star, and the man's E, a man's E, and the seed. Okay,
I'm gonna have to make this podcast 18 plus.
I'll try to keep it PG. But see,
fine,
that's one of the taboo things, right? It's so demonized that all of our words, you can't like how do we even speak of good and evil when it doesn't actually exist? These are assigned meanings later on to our history, hide our truth. We go, this I don't know, what do you call it, truther community is going all these crazy directions, just trying to figure things out, when really there's a true human origin story that it has been covered up for thousands of years and still in the process of. So the next one is J, or Yi, and this is the Jarlet. It means family, and Jarl means, like in English it would be Earl, and this is a much more common word in Europe and everything. In America, like I know the word Earl, but I only think of it as like the Duke, Earl Duke of whatever. And but this is,
I believe those are two different titles, like Duke and Earl are.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I'm saying. Like where I'm coming from is like I never really had too much experience with that word. With Earl, just kind of knowing it means, someone higher up, but it does mean basically like upper class. And this is the first class of the Vonner. Okay, the Jarls are the first class of the Vonner people, coming from the Osser people. So the Jarl father are Osser. Okay, and next one is K, and that's and we have this A with the ring above it down. O. So it's the Carlet, and this is the Carl, the middle class of the Vonner, and the Carl is a person. And next is L. So L is log, and it's EL, and it's referring to law or logic. And you'll notice an L makes a 90-degree angle. There's not many things that make a 90-degree angle except for trees, which are also logs.
Yeah.
With the ground, right? Or there's not that many straight lines in nature except for maybe trees, or a man's E. And anyway, so this is just referring to natural law and logic. And then you have M. Now
law,
M,
logic, yeah, okay.
And M is moon, M-E-M is how do you say North Star in Dutch?
We call it the North Star.
Yeah, that's what it is. North Star Nan. And it's the North Star, indicating knowledge, right? In English, we put a little K when we write the word knowledge, but it's silent. It actually starts with an N. Yeah, and that's what this is representing, knowledge. So I'm going to bring it all together once I finish, okay? I'm going to try to speed it up just so we can get through it.
That's fine.
Next one is O. It's Uden. Uden is a ring. Uden is everything. Uden has always been. Uden will always be. This is talking about the infinity of the sun. They want to scare us and say, oh, it's going to burn up, or it's only been here. Where did it come from? Things like that. This is
it'll eventually burn up already, but it'll just start anew after. Like nothing truly ever ends.
So the Uden, Stralar. which is straw is like grass, and it's the rays. It's what's coming off of the Udin. That is, and Udin has 5 aspects. It's the sun, it's lightning, fire, sperm, and gold. Okay, and these 5 aspects are used in different situations to express the same underlying concept of Udin being the universe. Okay, the next one is P. We're all born from Ekken's pole. Yeah, the oak tree. Yeah. It's a pole. So you have a P. If you make a P symbol with your hand, it's a hole, and then your arm is the pole. So this is where all the P. Women have a P, men have a pole, so we are people.
Oh shit. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
I can get into that. Sure.
Okay. And then Ku, Ku, Ku is quadrat, and this is representing mathematics. And a Q is a 2-dimensional representation of a sundial, of a pole in the middle and the shadow that is cast from in Udenma when the sun is circular, going around this ringland. So when the sun goes around this ringland, it makes a perfect sundial, and that is Q. Okay.
And like we still have that, but like with the old school stopwatches, that would just like literally be a clock with one dial just ticking round.
Yes. And how much time do we have? Hopefully
as much as you need.
Okay. All right. Well, you'll have to cut me off because I can go on forever. So, so Q is also a very feminine symbol. This is Queen Q, and it's representing mathematics. This is I'm giving you each individual meaning so far, but we're going to go in, and this is actually one entire poem altogether. Okay.
Q is quite literally girl math.
Mathematics. Ma, drinking tea. Ma, te, ma, tea.
That's why it never made sense to me.
And this is, so in the Bock Saga, lose the feminine aspect to life and nature. We don't miss the ring. It's not missing the rings. You know, in today's society, we have all the poles we need. You know, a lot of you know, right? But in this story, it is women who create the story and men who tell the story. So men tell the story, but women created the story, and that's why it's history and mystery.
Oh shit! But that's a joke you'll hear sometimes, that you know, men are born between a woman's legs, of course, and they spend their entire lives trying to get between them again.
Yes, that's funny. Which we're probably not going to get into this today, but it is through these festivals, carnivals, honeymoon, things like that women were choosing the men in heathen times. Okay. Women chose the men. Men would be gladiators and would compete. You stand on a pedestal. Pediatric. We're talking about making children. These are Midsummer's Night's Dream. You know, a bed of roses. It got a honeymoon. You know, we have all these words.
Summer of 69.
Yeah, and so exactly, yeah. And so you would have midsummer. So all of your boys were born in Aries. If you have your kids in summer, they're born in Aries. And so you can bypass the babies being born in the dead of winter because they need that sunlight. This is, it's super important to get that sunlight on our skin.
My parents were a little late because my birthday is January, like literally 6 days ago. So thanks, Mom and Dad. Love you too.
Yeah, I was born in June, so I'm like a total summer baby. Okay, and then after that is Ra. And Ra is it's basically so R-S, and then S is Sulin, the sun. Okay, so Sul, this is where we get our soul from, the sun, our soul. And Len means to smile. So it's the sun smiling, okay? And when the sun smiles on the moon, that is why the moon is represented by Ra as well. So now on the other side, we talked about C and D being the night and day. Well, S and RS is also the S. You see how the R is actually constructed out of the S? This is symbolizing the rays of the strolar of the sun reflecting off of the moon.
Oh, okay.
And so,
the solar ray. Yeah, okay.
Okay. And so Ra is the ruler of the planet also.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Ra, or Ray, you can hear it as Ray, is reflected light off the moon, which originates from the sun. And in the human body, it is also found in the esperma, the man's seed, and the sav, the sap of the woman. And this is through
Egyptian mythology, of course, being the sun god.
It got reversed there. Maybe it has something to do with a man having some ego, too much of an ego. That's
where plenty of stories come from.
It is through the Ra, the seed, and the Sav that life continues, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's essential to the flow of life on the planet. And then when you say flow, you know, the moon is what's moving the tides, moving the water, pulling, you know, it's this force. And the actual R is that A with the two dots above it. You could probably do a better pronunciation. Air. So it's the air. Yeah. So R is air, and it's the air, and it has a similar meaning because it's the medium in which the sun rays travel through.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. And then you have T, T-E, Te, like tea, to drink tea, and mathematics, and Tor is men, a big Tor, Tor's hammer, and women have a little Tor, a clitor, and okay, yeah, okay, and Klee, a word for that in Dutch, clean.
Oh, yeah.
Clitor. Anyway, I'm trying to keep it PG. I'm trying to keep it PG, but you know, we're talking about humanity and life, and you know, the propagation of our souls and spirits and things, you know. But Tor has a lot of meanings. So. Oh, go ahead.
Man, like it was even a belief until like just a few hundred years ago that both men and women had to climax in order for the woman to get pregnant. So sorry to all the ladies, but you are born in the wrong age because you know, if your man now doesn't make an effort, well, just wait till time travel is actually possible and just go back a few hundred years, because that's when men would actually, you know, like really try with the ladies to have them finish, because that was believed to be the only way that she could get pregnant.
You know, and women had a lot more power in these ancient times. And they still do. You know what? They still do. We have our mothers, yeah? And, you know, like I get a lot of my personality and ethics and morals from my mother.
And a lot of I know that, like,
how to treat other women, you know.
Yeah, and the Netherlands, like, we used to be a matriarchal society, and like just look at pretty much every mythology ever, like who were, you know, the most important. I mean, yeah, the gods are pretty important, but like look at the goddesses and how much power they have, how much power they wield, how big of a role they play in just all the mythologies, really. But we don't really look at that, like, and you know, I guess that's why so many of these left-leaning women now all scream the patriarchy. But I mean, it's kind of true, but like a full swing back to a matriarchy also, you know, doesn't really work. Although I do get it, you know, women are, you know, they're incredibly important. I mean, they are quite literally the carriers of life. If it wasn't for women, then, you know, the human race would have died out I don't know how long ago. So it's a good thing.
And also in ancient times, it wasn't all women that were mothers. It was the women would choose the women that would become mothers, and they were said to have a specific dream of Lucia carrying 7 candles down a hill. And if once they had this dream, they can come to their matriarch, tell them about, and they would ask them some questions to see if they really had this dream. And if they wanted to, they can become, if they had the feeling to become a mother, then they would.
That makes sense.
They would choose she would choose a man, and he would go compete with other men. And it was not as straightforward making children. It took, you know, in paradise, it would take the whole world to make a child. It would take 22,000 people to make one child.
Dude, that's
and
one hell of an orgy.
well, it wasn't like that. But
okay.
maybe it's a little too much to go into for this session.
Save for next time. We'll do an 80 plus stream.
Going back to tea, it also means te, which is tea. And there's a nice little anecdote, which is you can hold the leaf of a plant up to the sun, and if it's translucent, like the rays of Udin, and the strolar can go through the leaf, it has Udin's blessing. So you can make tea out of it. So if it's too thick, it's too green, and the strolar cannot go through the leaf, it's not good to make tea out of that. So, this is the first thing. When Freya and Freya were given specific gifts, was given the sounds and the sound system that we're talking about right now, and Freya was given the fire. And the first thing that humans did with the fire was extract the sap, extract the mahla out of the leaves to make tea. And this is the source of our bigger consciousness of nature, because we're the only ones with fire. We're the only ones who can extract life essence out of the nature around us.
I mean, we are the only, for as far as I know, at least the only life form on Earth who can consciously create. I mean, I don't see, I don't see my cat making a fire. I don't see even our closest little primate ancestor or primate relative, I don't see them creating a fire. So that's a big thing, and perhaps that's also why there are so many stories in every mythology ever about how fire came to the humans, and how much it meant for us, how much it did for our development, because water too, but
all of our energy today, our electronics, all of this is made of Udin. Right? This is all the fight. Without fire, we wouldn't have anything.
Yeah, it's incredibly rapid vibrations, which also gives off heat, and if it gives off enough heat, it'll burst into flames, fire. So yeah, and what was our first, literally our first, light source that we could carry with us, that we could create for ourselves? That was fire. That was torches. That was a dark, what's the first thing you do? You create a fire, not just for warmth, but also for light, so you can see around you. You can see, if there are any dangers in the cave or lurking in the cave. So yeah, it's so incredibly important. Just the essence of things is so important. And I'm kind of going back to tea. I always found tea to be more of a feminine drink. It's kind of it's very stereotypical, of course, but it's
what did I just say?
Women drink
the women
tea,
who
women
men
drink
were not
tea
given
and
the fire.
Coffee. No.
Yeah, that's what that's in the saga. The women were given the fire. Men were given the and Frey taught Freya. And the next letter is U for Ursprung. Is that a Dutch word as well? Origin?
Yeah, Oorsprong. Yeah.
Yeah, it means origin. But I find that this is one of my favorite words. Is because it makes me think of the word spring, right? And spring is a verb, you spring in action, or you spring out of, and then you have a water spring, right? And a water spring is water coming from out of the earth, right? It springs forth. It's the origin of the water originates from, it's the origin of the water. It's a spring, Whereas a lake isn't a spring; it's just sitting there, or whatever. But and then you also have springtime, where all the flowers blossom, all the plants start coming out and springing. So it's springtime.
When the earth springs back to life.
Mm-hmm. Even though the translation would be origin, but also in the English language, all of these meanings of spring, not connected, are all encapsulated in.
Which is, anyway. I mean, if we're talking, Dutch, for example, spring or springen is also to jump.
Yeah, exactly.
So and a spring, a well, it springs forth out of the earth. It jumps onto the surface of the earth, if you will.
Well sprung.
Yeah.
So the next one is V, and this is for Ve, and it's the Ekins Vonner. So the family tree line, and it's all the people living outside of Udenma, and it's the Vonner people. belonging to the family oak tree. And this brings us to the end. And there are there are 6 or 7, maybe 8. I'm losing track now, but letters outside. So you have the A with the ring. You have the A with the 2 dots. You have X, EX, which is a combination sound. X, like when you put S at the end, the letter S at the end of a word, it means like belonging to, like, this is Dustin's cup, right? This cup belongs to me, so it's Dustin's, S with an S. So X is Ek, which is oak with an S, so it's belonging to the oak, and it's a symbol for exchange.
The S, or the S tree, the ash tree, in at least in Norse and Germanic mythology.
Oh, that's next.
Was the first one, like out of the ash tree,
that's next. Hold on.
Elm. Okay.
Hold your thought. Hold your thought. Okay, because that's Y, which is Yggdrasil. Okay, so the X is for the oak tree, belonging to the family tree, which means and also representing exchanging things. But Yggdrasil is the ash tree, and it can be literally translated as the world tree, the woman tree, of all the living things tree. Yug, draw, means to like draw out of, like to draw a bow, and is it's like the highest value, with highest feminine quality value. All of the souls. So when someone would die, you would burn them, and their ash would be put under the ash tree. And this is the belief system where your ash goes up into the tree and becomes the leaf of the tree, goes up the sap, and is drawn. The life essence of our ash, when we would die, would go up into the tree and become the leaf. It would be the leaf. This is the belief system, and this is our family tree. And then if you all the pirouette people, all the Ossur, they would be eventually brought to this tree, and their souls would go back into nature. And
like one more thing, because I'm thinking, like if you overlay the Yggdrasil, or just the life tree on the human body, like the roots would literally be at its feet, because that's where you ground yourself, where you root yourself. It's it's in the dirt, it's dirty, it's dark.
This is where it draws from. The Yggdrasil.
Yeah, and our heads, our crown, our corona would be like the very top. Our hairs be the least, closest to the sun. But then Midgard, the realm of us humans, would be the mother's womb, and we would be, and we're of course born out of the V. That's why we consider it that's why the V is considered a feminine symbol, because it's the birth canal, a woman's hips, they turn into slightly a V shape, and we are given life out of that V, and that's
I'm going to get to that.
The pyramids, with the
hold on, pause up. That thought, pause that one, that one. We're coming to that. Hold on, you're ahead of it. See, we understand. When you understand nature, all this makes a lot of sense. But where does it originate? How are our words constructed? How are our mythologies? Where are the roots of our mythologies? Where are the roots of our belief systems? Right. So the next one, we have Z, which is Seta, which is basically like when you first make eye contact with someone, it's love at first sight. It's the flash. It's that spark. Okay, it's that spark when you engage with someone. Okay? So that's representing Zeta.
Would that also be why they like the basic shape of lightning? Like when you were a kid, when you draw lightning, you kind of draw like the the little Z shapes.
Yep, and it's Seta with an S, S-E-T-A. So it's the S, which is representing the sun, but it's Zeta. It's faster. It's the fastest way, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. It's Zeta. Okay. All right. Now one I don't have much more to elaborate on.
In the more occult circles, I don't know if you've seen Twin Peaks. Have you watched the
I
series
haven't
from
watched it.
Okay, well,
I've heard people talk about it though.
I'm actually I believe like halfway to through the last season. It's incredibly interesting. A lot of occult symbolism. But like it's those those little zigzag lines. They represent so incredibly much because they also they also represent water. The waves of water, the waves of sounds. When you go a little more into the darker occult, like attachments or whatever, like the more crystalline attachments, you would see them sort of as these like Z lines, black and white Z lines.
Yeah. So this is probably more like lightning, but this flash between two people,
the spark.
We sense people's energies, right? Like when they come into our space, you're like, something's off, I don't like this person, or I do, or I, whatever. You get it. That's Zeta. Whatever that is. Or more maybe like the choosing time, like it's that like, between you and your wife when you first met, or still, like when you see each other, you go at each other. Yeah, it's that.
It's funny because like we were talking about the Greek alphabet a bit, and Zeta in Greek is representative of makes sense. If you're like
wisdom. Anyway,
let's
go to the next one, which is the A with the ring above it, pronounced like this is in Mone, like the moon. And it represents a stream or a river. I think we already mentioned that. Okay. So when we were talking about the V, okay, and then I was like, hold on. So now we're at the A, the A with the two dots above it, which is Eng, which is a meadow, right? A meadow with lots of flowers, and it's associated with sap or mahla or the sill, the in Udra sill. This is what is being drawn. Right, in Udra sill, it's drawing the sap, the mala in Vana
from the sill, from the soil, the silty, salty,
silt. And this is where we get agriculture. So it's an agricultural symbol. The A with the two dots, and it's there's a big island with a lot of Engs, England. Okay. And we have this English language. Okay, so once a woman is chosen her mate for the year, she would go into this Eng, which is a meadow with a lot of flowers, and these flowers would serve as a bed of flowers.
Oh,
okay.
That's
and she would spread her angel wings. Angel wings.
That is a divine place, indeed. Yes.
And so angle, and in an Eng.
Well, that's fascinating. Because like the the trad wife, meaning the traditional wife and whatever, she's always like dressed in these flowery garbs, like a flower dress, or with like a flower crown in her hair or whatever. Always.
What do men bring on Valentine's Day to their woman, and or when we have that
when you really messed
phrase
up,
bed of roses, a flower. We call it a flower bed.
A bed of roses. It's from a rose.
This is all from the heathen times. Where before there was violence and war and everything like that, we had a totally different idea that's completely lost of how we used to live. And then you have the next character is the O with the two dots above it, which is representing the eyes. How do you pronounce it's or.
No, or
you do it.
Or it's your ears.
Okay, that's the next one. That's the O with the line through it.
That's that's
for island. It's for island, right? That's why we call it an island. It's it's representing island. And O, like off the coast of Helsinki, you have all the little islands. They're all oors. God dang it. I can't stand it. I wish I could pronounce these better. But anyway, it's a distinct sound. All of these characters have one. Americans. I know. Well, I'm trying. And I don't have other languages to add to the confusion in my brain. So like, at least I'm just like focusing on this root pronunciation of these words. And
you're doing quite well. You're doing for a native English
so
speaker.
It's an island. You have like off the coast of Helsinki. There's an island called Uden's O. So it's the island of Uden, which is the location of Valhalla. And then the last one is also island, which is the O with the line through it. Which is ear, which is the one you just said.
Yeah, that's the oor. You have your oog and oor.
I think your pronunciation of the O with the two dots above it is different than the root, but I'm picking up what you're putting down. I'm smelling what you're stepping in. Okay, so if you could pull up the ring again, sorry. Thank you.
Doing that ring.
Now that we've gone over all the meanings of each character,
you really want me to put
it's
a ring
great
on
to
it.
have something on the internet that is a lot more detailed that I'm going over right now, because it's all split up in different pieces and different recordings and things like that. But I think we're going pretty deep with the explanation. So starting with the E, the I, the top.
Yeah.
E. Alfarnas-bete. Gara D. In the castle of the Ossar, the drink is shared. Ekins fro grund hell. The drink is shared from the seed of the oak, or the family tree that originates from hell.
Deep roots.
E. Jarlarnus Karlarnus log. In the law of the Jarl and the Karl, and then you have Mone, Northstarna, Uden, Polin, Quadratin. In the law of the Jarl and the Karl, the moon, the North Star, and the universe, and the pole, which is the galactic axis and the Earth axis, are the quantities that make mathematics of how the concept of the moon, the North Star, and the sun, Uden, and the universe, with a pole in the center of a ring, a pole and a hole, give you all mathematics, the sundial, the quadrat.
Okay.
And these are how all these concepts interact, is how to calculate the energy and the light reflected off the moon from the sun, RS, together with the Tur. So the sun and the moon are best friends. They're Tur friends. Are the love and the heart, and the origin, the Ursprung, Rasol Tur, Ursprungets Vonner E, is reflecting off the moon, together with Tur, is the love and the heart and the origin of the Vonner people. So that's the poem. Okay. I Asarnas Bore Skara D Ekens Fru Grun Hell, I Jarlnas, Karlnas, Lag, Mone, Norstarna, Odin, Poland, Quad Vonner E. That's our alphabet. Okay. And this is talking about huh?
What you said, like that's too much.
Yeah, well, it's each letter in a rhyme. And this is the All Fathers, the Alfarnas-bete, the ABCs, the alphabet, the Alfarnas-bete. Bete means rhyme, so it's the Alfarnas-bete. Anyway, so at some point it's undeniable, right? Like, who can explain how can our alphabet be explained other than this is talking about, in this rhyme, we're talking about the origins of all the people, where they came from, how they're represented, the symbolism behind it, what the classes, the caste, and it's talking about, like, you can break each quadrant of the alphabet into 4 other shorter rhymes. So LMNOPQ. LMNOPQ is the logic, the moon and the North Star and the sun interacting in a pole and a ring, which gives you everything. All math, all calculatable things is coming from the LMNOPQ. So,
this is a lot to process.
It is. And so, this is like the cipher that is used in the Bock Saga. So if you say something wrong, like if I saying the Bock Saga and I made something up, the sound system is going to correct me. So you can't change it, because each letter has one specific sound and you can't change it. So say, like in English, you have all these different words and different spellings of everything, but it's the same pronunciation, indicating it's the pronunciation, it's the phonetics, it's the finished product, it's it's set, finely, it's made with finesse, it's this finished, it's this sound, it's in the phonetics that you can't change it. So when you're telling the saga, you're using the words that are constructed in this root language and expressed in all these other languages, and the Vonner language and the Finnish language is also constructed from this root language, which Swedish is a dialect of this root language. So Swedish is the closest closest to this root language.
Svensk, it's from the Sven line, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, yes, but the specifically in Finland, around the Helsinki, all the aristocrats or they have a language that's not really in any dictionaries, but they call it this root language. They call these people Swedish speaking Finns. So they call them Swedish speaking Finns in Finland. And there's about a couple 100,000 people that still speak this language. And you can hear the difference. Like in Swedish, they have like a very like up and down tonality to their language. Yeah. It's more vibrant. And if you put in like the word Swedish into Google Translate and you translate it into Finnish, it's called ruutsinkeli, rootsin, and sin is sing. So they're singing the root language. And this dialect that they speak in Helsinki and the southern coast of Sweden and up the southern coast of Finland is this root where it's more straight, like how we're speaking, without any of the up and down singing. Like Portuguese to Spanish is, Portuguese is very like melodic or something like that. Yeah. Whereas Spanish is more straight.
But that like kind of goes back to to what I mentioned. Like that's how we like learn our ABCs, like through singing it, and that's how I'm like also kind of learning myself the Elder Futhark, the alphabet of the Elder Futhark, singing it, because somehow if you put melody to it, it becomes easier to remember. Otherwise, it's very straightforward, very dry, like not interesting. Yeah, like I always thought that the more Latinized languages, so Spanish, French, Italian, Portuguese, they were always more lively languages. Like Italian, you don't even have to know Italian, but when you hear an Italian native speak, there is such it sounds so vibrant. Well, Dutch, for example, but that's mostly because of our RG. The G. A lot of people say that it's a very harsh sounding language, and it's almost like two people with a cold coughing up against each other.
Well, Latin is a fake made up language. This is a written language for the priest class, and this is what they used to kill all the pagans. They used it to infiltrate all of the lands up the northern lands. They use this language because no one can read it. No one even read. Why would you need to read? Everything's oral tradition. All these stories, all of our words taught us everything we need to know because it's in the sound. It's in the ears and in our voices. But this is all taken away. That's why they call it a definition. Yeah, a definition. The word deaf is in there because they want to take tradition. They want to take all the knowledge that is free in our language that was given to us by our ancestors away from us. And you just need to teach one priest up in these lands who's, coming up. Oh, I'm peaceful and everything. I just want to teach you about, Christianity. I want to teach you who God really is. I want to teach you about Jesus. I want to teach you about this. And then they get this book written in Latin, and only one guy in this whole town can read it. But this one guy in this whole town also speaks their native tongue, so he can translate it. And now you start losing all of these associations, and you start tricking people. And just like he was probably tricked, right? And you start tricking people, and you start infiltrating and destroying these old ways. This is what but it's hard to do. You can't actually take away the associations because you have a sound system. You can't actually change the words. You just have to change change their definition. Once you start changing the definition of their words, then you start taking away all of these associations, or you change the sound, right? Just like in A, E, I, O, U in English, or we have all these different ways of spelling all our words, and A can be A, can have like 100 different sounds.
That's also one of the major ways how Christianity, and especially later on the Roman Catholic Church, how they managed to subdue, not conquer, but subdue Europe. Like because only they could read Latin. It was they could tell you whatever. Like, oh yeah, no, that means that. It's the same. It's just this language is like the actual language, and it's more important, and all of that. And that's why now hell is a bad place for some reason.
Whereas all the other words that have hell, like healthy
and help,
or
they're
help.
pretty.
You ask for help,
yeah,
right? It's a good thing to ask for help, or to receive help, or to be healthy, or you have Helios, or Hellenistic, or
say hello to someone
in the north,
like a friendly greeting.
In the north, the Os are hell, so you have Oshel, and then you have the Greeks who were previously called the Hellas. Yeah, it's the this came later than the Oshel, but hell was existing as the place hell up until only about 1,000, a little over 1,000 years ago.
And it's also like, now I mentioned like the languages, and that's also why you see that the more north into Europe you get, the less Roman, like that's really what it is. It's not Latin, it's Roman. There is in the languages, like Italian, Spanish, the languages I just mentioned, almost a direct derivative of Roman. But the further north you go, the more Germanic it becomes. And there are still some words here and there, and especially Dutch. That's how we learn other languages so easy. Like, we have a lot of words that we borrow from other languages. They're not Dutch, but they've become part of the Dutch language. Same
thing with English. Yeah, English is like still a growing language. Its lexicon is like 5 times larger than the next biggest language. We have 4 times more words than anyone else. And but in California, you can say, "Hey, sayonara, amigo." You know exactly what I'm saying, even though I didn't say any English words, but they are English words now. Also,
exactly. I mean, that's something I could totally hear like some server dudes say, and like you don't even have to know what the words mean to know what he means by that. And that's funny, like how language is becoming, well, like it is so important, and every language in the world like really becomes integrated with each other. And like when I first mentioned Chinese, because like the few billion freaking Chinese people, like they are very much or like their language is not one of words, it's still one of symbol, and it really depends on how you draw the symbol or how you even pronounce it, that gives it a whole other meaning. Like there are words in Chinese that if you just phonetically pronounce it a little different, it can mean up to 6 different things, but it's the same words, but just by pronouncing it differently, by like a vowel here a little higher and there a little lower and whatever, it's a new word.
As I've come to understand it, is they're all still coming, all these languages are still coming out of this root sound system. Okay, it's the only one with as many sounds. It has more sounds than any other language, and each sound has a specific meaning. So the thing is, like, you can say a tree. We call it a tree. Why do we call it a tree? Well, there's a specific reason why we call it a tree in root language. But another language, it phonetically completely different. But it's still, they can, instead of calling it a tree because of the way the root language calls it a tree, the reason the root language calls it a tree, they can also call it a shade cover. In their language, it would be more like a shade cover in the core basic sounds. And so it's still coming from this root language, but it's describing it in a different way, right? And so we can get all these different names for all these different, just like in astrology, you have the Roman pantheon, then you have the Greek pantheon, and then you have the Nordic pantheon, but they're all talking about the planets, right? And the different names for the same thing, and all these different names have different meanings, but they're still representing the same thing. You know what I mean? So that's how languages can flow out. Just like I look a lot into the Hebrew language, which is actually this is too big of a topic to really go into, but it's actually constructed from a torus field, and that's why we call it the Torah. And this concept of the torus field is actually represented in our hands. And you can take shape of our hands, you make like an L, and you imagine a flame going around and then coming down. And at different angles of this hand signal, if I put my hands above my head or straight ahead, or like I'm holding a baby, or I'm doing different things at different angles, is if you were to like put it in front of a campfire or something, and you make these different symbols, the shadow it casts are all of the Hebrew letters. And so they constructed this language not from the phonetics, but from something else. And you can do this, you can take this methodology of creating a language in all these different types of ways, where for the Greek language, it's the same concept as the Hebrew language, but with two flames. So it's like a double flame, and then at different angles makes one object is making can be viewed at all these different angles to make because when we look with our eyes, you only see two-dimensional. You only see like the front part of if you're looking at like a cube, you only see a square. Whereas a cube, it's actually a cube. But that cube, if you imagine it as like a torus field, like a donut, this is actually a four-dimensional object. You can actually see it. And then you can take a slice from the outside of a four-dimensional object, and that's what our hands are. So it's it's funny if you're it looks like a three-dimensional object, but you view it from different angles. It's making a shot. You put a sliver, which is three-dimensional, from a four-dimensional object, which does exist. Like you can see a four-dimensional object. Right, it's just slices of this. Anyway, I don't know if I'm making any sense here, but what I'm saying is you can construct all these languages from a different concept, like the Hebrew language is constructed from a flame, or you can take the same concept of water, or you can take air, or take something like that. And you take the LMNOPQ qualities of these certain powers, we can say, or energies, and construct languages with you create a foundation to construct an entire language that fractals out. And that's the same thing of what we just went over is, I showed you a ring, but why is the A, B, C, D, E, F, G, why are they exactly the way they are? It has to do with the angles of the sun and the moon, the different phases of the moon, is how these letters aren't just made up. They're actually constructed from the sun and the moon. And this is the only language that is the characters that we use in our alphabets are constructed, the only language that is constructed from the quantities that actually exist that do create our reality. Whereas you can't, if you just use just the flame like the Hebrew, you're missing the sun, you're missing the moon, you're missing all these quantities that make us who we are. And whereas this alphabet is constructed from the quantities that do make us who we are, how way things are, and construct the nature around us.
It makes me, and it makes me wonder, like, how much of that could you also find in Freemasonry? Because if you're talking about flames, if you're talking about angles, and all the hand signs and whatever, you find that like so much in Freemasonry, and they are also the the guardians of the flame. They are the keepers of the flame. The fire.
Jews, bro.
Still better than the actual ones, but like they are the keepers of knowledge, because the flame, like we talked about before, fire, and how fire came to humanity, came to the humans. Like it was such a big deal. So to be a keeper of flame, like is quite literally one of the most important jobs that you could ever have. I mean, you see that also in in Roman times with the Vestal Virgins, for example, in the temple. They were tasked with keeping the sacred fire alive, and because they were virgins, they were supposed to be virgins at least. They were still considered, because no man had touched them, because they weren't defiled by someone. They were still innocent, and only those pure of heart, the pure innocent ones, can guard the sacred fire, because they still have pure intentions. They have no ulterior motives.
And all this all of the religions of today are pulling from these old pagan pagan rituals and and processes, and they can be traced back. Even from the Muslims pray 5 times a day on mats. Well, these are asana mats. And this comes from an old pagan ritual and still existing in a lot of different Muslim countries. I remember coming across this video recently that was like flame that they have in this bowl, and they're like not allowed to practice their religion anymore, but they still kind of keep up the building and everything. But they have like this flame that's been going for like thousands of years, and they're not Muslim. They come from before. I don't remember if it was in like Turkmenistan or something like that, but
I remember
you
seeing
see these
like
things
that
are hint to our past, or Gobekli Tepe is fun too, because you can see like if you've seen that most recent statue they dug up there, it's like a 7-foot Nordic dude with like a Bock beard, a goat beard. And he has his dick coming out, and like it's like very prominent. He has this like facial expression, and he's standing next to a pedestal. It's a Gobekli Tepe.
That makes sense. Because in the Byzantine Empire, they had like I guess what in those days would be considered the Vikings. The Vikings are the Varangian Guard. And Northern Europeans compared to especially those in Asia Minor and the Middle East, we're compared to those people. So if you're a mighty king and you see a couple of those, big, burly, bearded, blonde hair, red hair, freaking giants. How about you guard me? You look like a bunch of, strong fellas who, can manage an axe and can manage a sword. How about I just give you a big bag of money and, a lot of freedom to do whatever the hell you want? Maybe some pretty girls. You be my personal bodyguards. I mean, who's going to mess with you?
What's interesting also is, in the saga, it talks about how after the ice caps melted enough, they basically survived in hell throughout the Ice Age because of the warm water currents from the Gulf of Mexico going up to the Baltic Sea, the Nord Stream, right? It's the North Stream, the Nord Stream. And we have the Nord Stream pipeline. This is Russia's fighting the war in Ukraine over this warm water port. This is what prevented hell from actually freezing over during ice time, and so they survived in the ice because of this, and used methods of nature to survive in the ice. And after they are able to get out, first when the ice cap started sliding, they had to flee, and so they fled to Gotland, which is that large island in the Baltic Sea, south of Sweden, Stockholm, or whatever. I think it belongs to Sweden now. But Gotland comes from Goatland, which is also Bockland. So it used to be called Bockland, which is now it's Goatland. Anyway, and they existed there for about 1,000 years, and then from there they once the ice kind of melted enough for them to go back to Helsinki today, as we call it today, Helsing. This is also a side note. Shakespeare wrote in Hamlet, I think, about the soliloquy in Elsinore, and this comes from Helsingor. Anyway,
the famous vampire hunter Van Helsing, of course.
So, but they reconnected with all of these other kingdoms because during ice time, all the rest of humanity was cut off from their Allfather at the North Pole, and it was during this time where our skin turned white and we got green eyes, blonde hair, red hair. All this came out of ice time, and you can see in cultures today after the ice melted that they were reconnected with. So, do you know Andrew Schultz? He's a comedian. He's an American comedian. He's pretty funny. Anyway, he became really popular during COVID because he would do these like green type comedy things that played really well over the screen. But he's a stand-up comedian, and recently he posted this clip, and he was singling out this guy in the crowd, and he's and it was this guy with red hair, white skin, and super red hair, and he's like, "Is that a red-haired Muslim?" And he's like, "Yeah, guess where I'm from." And he was guessing. This guy's from Iraq. Okay, he's a red-haired dude from Iraq, and now you get red-haired babies born in Japan. You get red-haired babies born in Iraq. All around the world, you got the talk of these red-haired, giants in the Americas and things like that.
I think I know which clip you mean. I didn't see I haven't seen the whole clip, but I looked him up real quick. I'm familiar with I've seen him before. I've probably seen stuff of him before, but I mean that's like what you're like now talking about. That's kind of going into perhaps we should save that whole thing for another time. We're going on for like 2 hours already.
This is evidence
that's kind of going into
these if white skin came from the ice, and now you have these traits being expressed in all the different cultures. There was mixing post Atlantis time in these cultures. And a lot of these Muslim cultures have green eyes. I have green eyes. It's a very rare eye color. I think it's like 2% of the world has green eyes. And it's expressed in a lot of these cultures, and this is coming from the ice.
Well, the Berbers in North Africa. The Berbers in North Africa, they are a African tribe. Like you find a lot of them in Morocco and Algeria, I believe. But they are blonde or reddish hair and very.
That's because they're barbars. Barbarians. You're born bear, you die bear. You have the Berbers, the barbars. It's all the same. And this is those terms came from the Romans, because the Romans, they don't have the trait to grow beards. If you look at like Roman statues, they're all like beardless.
They're all very clean shaven indeed. And I know
they don't even have to shave. I don't think. I think they just genetically do not produce beards. And so they were talking about all the bearded people and describing them. And so now these are the barbarians.
Well, it's like quite literally everyone who was a.
Yeah. Eeyore Bock, who told about the Bock Saga, kind of described some of the mixing and cultures that developed from these mixing. But you can trace the reason we take our father's name is because the sperm line is very strong, and you get different qualities from the mother side. So mom, and dad. You get this very specific qualities and traits passed down that don't get lost in the genetics. So, like for example, you got a kingdom of Hindustan, which is what we call India today, but also all the Stan countries, Afghanistan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, all these. This is all the same race, tropical race that developed that had their own all-father king and crown prince system during Atlantis or Atlantis time, ice time in the north. So while they were having their ice time in the north, and there's no white people existing anywhere, they had their own thing. And then once they emerged from the ice, they started, these men would come and start making their own race of people. This is the Mongols, the Mongolian. This is a Swedish and Chinese mix. And you got, and then you have the Tartars, which is another Finnish, maybe Swedish mix with the Hindustan people. And so you have the Tartars. You got the Tartars, the Berbers, the Barbars, all around. And then you have, the Romans, the Romans, which come from the, and they had the east side, which is a dividing line in Crete, the island of Crete, separated the east and west. So you have the Greek Orthodox coming off. Going east, and then you have the Roman Catholic coming off to the west, and the Roman people are also another different race of people.
How about we save that topic for a part 2? Because
I think we did a great job presenting the alphabet. So thank you for that.
Yeah, that's for sure. Like we went over it several times. Like you really want me to put a ring on it, No, but thank you very much. I mean, this has been 2 hours of a lot of information. And definitely, I mean, how much truth there is to it, I don't know. Like every people says that their truth is the ultimate truth, that their texts are, or these scriptures or whatever. But if anything, you have given us a lot of food for thought, and to study languages deeper, study cymatics, the study of sounds, to a little deeper research, or just better looking into that. So yeah, and definitely next time I would love to go into the races of people and genetics and all, because that's a fascinating topic and something that's well, again, because history repeats itself, speaking of a circle coming full circle, it's very much a hot topic again, race and racism and genetics and like all of that. So I am very curious as to what the Bock Saga has to say about that. And if we're going into that, I definitely want to have Thane Josh on there as well, because he has been doing a lot of research into that lately with the Hun and all of that. Dustin, thank you very much for coming on. Is there anything that you wish to plug, anything that you wish to share, maybe where we can find more about the Bock Saga?
So again, the Bock Saga is an oral story. So what I did today isn't really telling the Bock Saga. I'm more like describing some of like the symbols of the alphabet and the sound system. Which is the cipher, to kind of understand how the words are constructed when you hear the saga also. A better intro to the saga is hearing the story itself, and there's a lot of recordings done since the saga came out about 40 years ago this year, and in 1984. Wow. And so the original storyteller Eeyore Bock and his group of friends that he kind of gave the story to impart each one, so to help people kind of be able to say it themselves and not make mistakes. A lot of those recordings are exist on the internet today. I made a Twitter page, Bock Saga X, and I just compile all the ones I can find that are spoken in English on there. We have the Bock Saga channel on Bock Saga English on Telegram, which is where we met, and there's a lot more details. You can go in there, and it's been existing for about 6 months. You can use like the search button, like if you have like Nephilim, you can put in the word Nephilim and see where we've broken down that word, or broken down the word, different words to their true meanings and their origin story. Or we talk about different mythologies, and we go into the phonetics of different languages and the root language. So it's that one's a fun channel to be a part of. I'm pretty active in that. I don't have any social media that I post or make content on. Like I said, I just have the X channel that I just repost the videos to find like a one place you can just kind of go and scroll through and find different interviews with men like Michel Merle. He's still around. He's active in the Bock Saga English channel. He's can go into the most detail and break down words. He's who I ask questions of.
You recently did a show with
a lot of old recordings of Andy, Jim Chesner, right? And he's great. He's he passed away a couple years ago, but he's done a lot of podcasts and recorded a lot of videos. Like there's Welcome to Hell on YouTube, Welcome to Atlantis on YouTube, Welcome to Rajasthan. And there's also the Lemminkainen Temple excavation, and that should be completed very soon. We should be able to get to the door of the Lemminkainen Temple, which is a big story that of all the treasures of Paradise Time were brought up to, and which will pretty much completely validate everything in the saga. Once we get into that temple, they've been excavating that with several hiatuses in between. And so if you're interested in the Bock Saga and hearing more, just look up some of the videos of these original storytellers. I've done a couple podcasts, and I'm good at kind of meeting people where they're at. If you haven't heard it before, kind of introducing a lot of the ideas of it, but going into the greater detail, definitely go to those videos. Thank you.
Yeah, no, you're most welcome, and thank you for sharing so much of it. Like I said, this has been a lot of information, but it's
something you can
really
listen to, absorb a little more. And I think this would be even a good episode for people who are already familiar to maybe go through it, because I was kind of citing a lot of the stuff, so I wasn't bringing my own interpretations in so much into this. So it should be a good reference place for people in the future to also come back to and get a real good idea of this sound system, because it's really key. It's the cipher to all of our knowledge. It's the cipher to understand, like, has been covered up by this relegioning of society and our civilizations and things like that, and why everything's such a mess right now.
Oh boy, and a mess it is. This is definitely one that people are gonna have to watch and have to listen to multiple times to just grab everything that has been discussed. Not that I mind, because that's just more listens and more views and all of that, which means that you can get the knowledge out even further. So Dustin, thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Much. Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you to everyone who was here with us in the comment section or just as a viewer. You can find more of what Dustin does and all about the Bock Saga on the Bock Saga Telegram. I have the link in the description box down below, together with the official website for the Bock Saga. And if you want to know more, if you want to learn more about what we do with the Greyhorn Pagans and the Pagan Revival, go to www.greyhornpagans.com. You'll find everything there, from the books that Thane, Josh, and I have written, to the Substack that multiple of us do. Just everything Pagan Revival and Greyhorn Pagans you can find there on our website. That is www.greyhornpagans.com. Sorry, Zaralat,
support this man, buy his book.
Thank you. And sorry, Zaralat, that you had to miss the live, but there is 2 hours worth of video that you can watch whenever you feel like it, whenever you have a little time. So yeah, thank you all. This has been amazing. I am gonna try and get my mind back together, because it has been blown multiple times over. So yeah, until next time, thank you all. Bye bye.